It's kind of funny, really, that actually the initial kind of genesis of the idea for these synths was a visual one, really.
Yeah.
It was coming from a kind of visual art kind of like theory rather than any idea of what they're going to sound like.
Well, I handed you some files with all of the parts in layers, and you could move them wherever you wanted.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of a bit of a revelation for me when you told me that I could design where the components go on these objects. I think that really kind of like set in motion the philosophy behind the project, which was kind of complete freedom and experimentation with composition, and this real playful aspect started to kind of like reveal itself, I think.
It's about this marriage, isn't it, between a graphic visual language and edgy sound world. And
yeah,
that's really at the core of the project, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a synthesis between this noisy sound environment that kind of is your traditional palette, that's your material that you work with,
yeah.
and my kind of graphic language that I developed especially for this project. And it's kind of about marrying two quite bizarre, slightly off-kilter languages, one sound, one visual, and kind of seeing what came out of it. And I think what did come out of it was a sense of play.
So in many ways, a lot of the sound comes out of the object. So it's a kind of object-orientated way of making sound. So the sound comes from the objects, the design, the shapes, the patterns.
Why do the synths sound the way they do? Because it's quite a peculiar, almost brutal sound that they have.
Well, I've got a bad reputation, haven't I? Dirty electronics.
Yeah, I guess you do.
Hanging out with some of the wrong people. So, yeah, my musical voice is associated with noise. Although noise, for me, it's part of the same circle of music making. And actually, I choose those. I like to work with that material, so it's not really noise. It's a different type of sound that I'm interested in working with.
There's no kind of instructions on the boards to tell you what knob to twiddle at at a normal, whatever time. It's like when I pick up the synth, I don't really know what I'm doing. I've had to kind of learn from you the exact function for each knob.
I kind of like putting people in a position of naivety where they have to find the music through playing. That's a really important aesthetic of the whole project. Finding out what it can do.
Yeah.
Don't read the manual.
Yeah.
There's no manual of sorts.
Yeah. If someone is new to one of these objects, what do you think they can expect kind of as an experience?
Well, you can stick your headphones on and straight away you can get into the sound world. Switch it on, off you go.
And it is a world, isn't it? It is its own sound world.
And you can experiment with this by patching in different modules, swapping some of the cables around, getting different results. A lot goes a long way. Lots of different patterns you can explore, which can become like really interesting loops, different.
It's not something that's kind of going to get boring really quickly. Like I still don't feel like I've explored the full potential of these things. Like it's vast, and there's so many textures and so many different combinations that you can try.
There's happy accidents. The noise module is yellow. It's quite angular, and that feels literally edgy, both in terms of its visual look and its sound. Whereas the oscillator has got a kind of more rounded sort of shape and a rounded sound. That was perhaps a happy accident that some of those things materialised. The
designs have 3 layers. They have the base shape layer, and I think the idea for that was we wanted them to be really bold, graphic shapes. It's very much a graphic kind of artwork. So each board was a bold shape. It would have a bold colour, which is something that we haven't really seen before, I think, in kind of synths, and that's something we were keen on doing, having a very colourful artwork. And then you have the components, and actually where the components are laid out. And when you told me that I could lay out the components in whichever way I wanted, that was amazing, because it meant that we could kind of really create something quite bizarre and something completely non-functional. And I think that's a really lovely thing. So the Polytik system has the ability to be incorporated into other systems. It's not just a standalone environment.
Yeah, a lot of time was spent thinking about how you could integrate it into your home system, either with a modular synth or with MIDI. So it meant going back to the drawing board and reprogramming some of it, and now you can patch in all sorts of connections.
And that is that a new thing for you, being able to kind of have kind of like CV controlled? I
think that level of control and a number of options is a really great thing about Polytik, and that makes it not only a wonderful, if I can call it a design object, but a great tool to use in the studio as well. I'm not so into the bleepy sort of chip music, sort of chiptune sound, but I like a lot of feedback. So there is on 2 or 3 of the modules a feedback network, and that can create loads of different responses and different textures, and that's really exciting, as well as having more traditional oscillators and things. We didn't use any markings on the board, and I'm kind of anti-manual, aren't I, really? I don't want to write everything down, and so for me as well, it's all about what these things throw up and how you have to find a sound world and how you play with it, really, or interact with it in different ways.
But that's the great thing, is that it's got, if you want to, you can dive in, you can make your own sequences, you could hack it if you wanted to. You could dive into its CV capabilities.
It's going to be interesting to see what people do in terms of hacking it, because it's all open source. This is something we're committed to as well, to enable people to carry on exploring.
Or if you wanted to, you could just put it on a coffee table and be done with it.